Good evening, you're watching NDTV. I'm Rishika Barua. The big focus story for us this evening. Data from the vaccine trial has shown that the coronavirus vaccine developed by the University of Oxford stops 70% of people from developing COVID-19 symptoms. It is both a triumph and as well a question at the moment after vaccines by Pfizer and Moderna have showed 95% protection. Now, there's also intriguing data, and we'll try and help you understand that by a panel of experts in just a bit, that goes to suggest that perfecting the dose could actually increase protection up to 90%. So, is the Oxford vaccine effectively a 90% efficacy? That's the question that we'll seek to answer. Now, the Oxford jab as compared to Pfizer and Moderna will be cheaper and easier to get and store in every corner of the world. As compared to the other two, which have very serious logistical challenges attached with them. So it will play a significant role in tackling the pandemic if it is approved, of course, by the regulators. The Oxford researchers have performed the normally decade-long process of developing a vaccine in around 10 months. More than 20,000 volunteers were involved, half in the UK and the rest in Brazil. So the Oxford vaccine, remember, is being manufactured in collaboration with the Serum Institute of India. The Moderna and Pfizer vaccines, though, have proven, as per the data that they've released, that they're more effective. The Oxford vaccine will actually be cheaper, easier to store, and therefore a much more viable option for India. Now, this is important because AstraZeneca and the Oxford vaccine, remember, is being produced in collaboration with AstraZeneca. They've put out a statement on vaccine efficacy, and they've said that one dosing regimen showed vaccine efficacy of 90%. Another dosing regimen showed 62% efficacy, and the combined analysis from both these regimens resulted in an average of 70% efficacy. Now, what really does this statement mean? We'll try and break it down for you. Joining us on the broadcast, we have Dr. Romil Tikku. He is the Associate Director of Internal Medicine, Max Healthcare. We also have Dr. Shekhar Mande. He is the Director General, CSIR, and the Secretary of DSIR. We also have Dr. Suranjit Chatterjee, Senior Consultant, Internal Medicine at the Apollo Hospitals. Appreciate you all, gentlemen, for being with me on the show today. I want to begin by asking you, Dr. Mande, very simply put, what does this AstraZeneca statement mean? It has, I mean, for the layperson to understand it, one dosing regimen showed vaccine efficacy of 90%. Another dosing regimen showed 62% efficacy, and the combined analysis shows 70% efficacy. What does this mean?
See, anytime we talk of efficacy, and there is subtle difference between efficacy and effectiveness that we'll not go into right now. But efficacy means that the vaccine was given to a large number of people, thousands of people, and out of which some were placebos and some actually vaccine.
Yes.
Now, out of this, X number of people developed COVID after a particular period of time. Out of X, a small percentage of people were given the vaccine, actual vaccine, and the rest were actually placebo. And that actually tells you how much efficacy it has had, 90% and this and that. That essentially means that the placebo people, 90 people developed COVID, while only 9 people who were given the vaccine developed COVID. So it's roughly about 90% efficacy is what we will actually talk about. Now, the fact is about single dose and double dose and all is only time will tell. But at this moment, all these reports are press reports, or they are being projected on TV and popular media. We will have to really wait for peer-reviewed papers, or when the data is presented to the appropriate regulatory authority. Only after that we can say a little bit more about it.
All right. Dr. Tikku, are you optimistic after this news? Because, like we said at the very outset, if you look at the data that's been released by the Oxford University, it is, of course, reason for India, to look at this data very carefully, because this is a vaccine that is being manufactured at the Serum Institute. It is our most real and probable shot. At getting a COVID-19 vaccine. But the Pfizer and Moderna data, in a certain sense, does it dwarf the joy? Does it make it less?
Well, this is huge, big news for India, especially since we have a tie-up with AstraZeneca Serum Institute, and they had already started manufacturing the vaccine, and it will be readily available here. Vaccine is not only about going through in the trials; it's also about the manufacturing, the distribution, the availability, and that's where India will benefit from the AstraZeneca vaccine. And if it shows an efficacy of 60 to 90%, it's more than welcome, I would say. Anything beyond 50 is a big thing for any country, and I would say it will boost our fight against the spread of the virus.
Right.
And compared to Moderna and Pfizer, there are logistical hurdles there. Storing it at -70, -20 for India, it's going to be a tough challenge. Plus, we don't have some sort of an agreement with them. And if the trials here show it's 60 to 70% efficacious, and with the coming time when we'll have more data on the vaccine, and if it's authorized for emergency use, it's really going to benefit us, and it will protect the whole society as a whole. But again, the efficacy in the trials, if you compare it with the effectiveness, as the doctor rightly said, is different, because in the trials, the volunteers are otherwise healthy people. It also depends on the race, the ethnicity.
Yes.
While as in the real world, you give it to people who might be of different age and they might have multiple other issues. But overall, the picture seems to be bright because we already have a tie-up. It's been manufactured here. And anything beyond 50%, I would say we'll take it.
But I want to just, because you said anything beyond 50% is something that is good news. The question that many of our viewers, I'm sure, have, and I for one have, is what about the other 50%? Does it mean that it could create side effects, or does it just mean that it wouldn't work?
Well, till now what they've said is it's safe and there are no safety concerns as such. But because we need more data on it, so I can't really comment. But the fact that it has been found to be safe till now, I don't think there will be safety issues, but it's only about whether the other 50% will get immunogenicity or not, whether they'll have antibodies or not. That's what they basically mean. But again, with this particular virus, even you can have asymptomatic infections. Even in the trials, the ones who actually they thought wouldn't have had infection, maybe they were carrying an asymptomatic infection. So there are many ifs and buts associated with vaccines as far as COVID is concerned. But even if it's 50%, at least it will help us to fight the virus to an extent and reduce the spread of the disease.
Dr. Chatterjee, perfecting the dose would mean 90% efficacy. Does that essentially just tell us that this vaccine will have, say, 2 doses in order for it to be effective? You know, how much apart will those doses have to be given? How are you reading this news today?
See, as Dr. Tikku said, 90% efficacy was actually a very high figure. And I'm very surprised and at the same time happy that if it can give you a 90% efficacy, it is fantastic, because most of these vaccines give up efficacy, like most of these basically when there are mucosal infections, the efficacy has been found to be mostly 60% or something like that. Like an influenza virus would provide, influenza vaccine would provide efficacy of 60% in people. So 90% sounds very good. Obviously, the dosage schedules have been different, as you were telling at the initiation, that a particular dosage pattern, when the full dose vaccine was given at an interval of 28 days, they found that the efficacy fell down to actually 62%. But when they gave half a dose initially and then gave the full dose at a month later, the immunity or the protection rate was much higher. But as I said, 2 doses, I think it will need more number of doses. Single dose is not going to act, but it has to, the only time will tell us as to how efficacious it's going to be. But I think it has to be in all probably 2 doses at a month apart, and that should provide us the efficacy of this vaccine.
Okay, so 2 doses a month apart, and that 90% efficacy that we're talking about should be manageable. You know, Dr. Mandey, if I can come to you, you've of course you know, been at the helm of affairs when it comes to several of these bodies as well. What does it take, or what are the criteria in order to be able to get emergency use authorization? What does emergency use authorization mean for India?
So I'm sure this is being discussed at the regulators right now, even in India. And it's always the question of risk versus benefit, right? I mean, if we don't bring this vaccine in emergency use, what are the risks that we run, and how many lives we are going to lose, and what is the burden on the healthcare system? Or the benefit that if we give, even if let us hypothetically assume that there are side effects. So what are the benefits with those side effects? And generally a call is taken. Now this being a global pandemic of the nature, it is quite reasonable to imagine that our regulator will actually also look at it very sympathetically and consider emergency use approval. So that's generally the risk benefit analysis that most regulators would do around the world for this.
Right. Two questions, and I'd just like to ask you this as well, Dr. Mandey, before I move on. Two questions that really remain unanswered or unclear, at least at this point, is does the vaccine work in asymptomatic carriers? So what if you're asymptomatic? Can you still pass on the infection if you've been given this vaccine? That's one question. And does the vaccine or any of these vaccines that we're talking about, whether it's Oxford, Moderna or Pfizer, what is the answer when it comes to long-term protection? Or is that just something that time will tell?
So this right now we still don't understand whether it will work on which kind of population, which not asymptomatic or not.
Okay.
Typically what the vaccine would do, it will bring down the actually viral load, or it will not increase the viral load in the body dramatically. But in terms of the immune memory, there are two arms of the immune system, what we call as the B cell and what we call as the T cell. And at this moment, what has been observed is that the antibodies are there in the body for at least 3 months, and one of the papers also suggests that their antibodies remain in the body for much longer.
Right.
There's a recent paper in Science that suggests that antibodies remain in the body for even a longer time. But it's also T cells, which immunity can actually long for a much longer period.
Right.
And because the disease itself is only about 11 months old, at this moment it's not very clear to us how long does the immunity last.
Right.
We are all hoping that we will get actually a long-term immunity once vaccinated. That's the hope that all of us have.
So, Dr. Tikku, for a lay person to understand, when you are injected with this vaccine, it essentially triggers an immune response in your body, am I correct? Similar to if you have already contracted COVID-19, it triggers an immune response and your body gets into fighting mode. Antibodies are produced or you develop T-cell immunity. Can you explain the science of how this vaccine works?
Well, when you are injected with a vaccine, it sort of generates an immune response, and that's when you develop antibodies over a period of 2 to 4 weeks. And those antibodies fight the infection when you are exposed to the virus, and those antibodies get into play and they'll destroy the virus and you won't get the infection. That's the science behind the vaccination. And that's why it's so important for all of us to get vaccinated against COVID, because of the pandemic. That's what it exactly means.
Right. I think the other question, Dr. Chatterjee, of course, is associated with risks. And what about long-term protection? You know, are 2 doses of the potential Oxford vaccine going to be enough? How often is one going to need to get this vaccine? Because, there is, in all vaccines, there is some regularity with which, you have to be administered a certain amount of doses within a certain period of time. So, are all of those questions clear at the moment?
No, I don't think that we have answers to all these questions at this moment. What we can see at this moment is that at least for 3 to 6 months, maybe it is lasting, but maybe it would last for a longer time or a shorter time. Only time would tell us. We unfortunately don't have the answers to these questions. But even if it gives us immunity for a certain period of time, the fact that it is giving immunity first is a very good thing that has happened. But how much time it would last, how frequently we need to be vaccinated to be immune, is still a question which needs to be answered in the long term.
All right. Dr. Mandey, timelines. I mean, this is preliminary data that we're talking about at the moment. We do know that the Serum Institute of India has already been manufacturing the Oxford vaccine in the hope that it will be safe and efficacious so that there's no delay in disseminating this vaccine. What would you say is a realistic timeline for inoculation?
Timeline in terms of getting it to the market, or timelines for inoculation actual people?
Both.
So it is expected that Pfizer and Moderna should approach the regulators in the next about couple of weeks.
Yes.
From the press reports, it's expected that in their respective countries, probably US FDA, they would have approached in the next 2 weeks with the data that they have on cards. It appears that Oxford and AstraZeneca will probably take another couple of weeks to approach the regulators in all likelihood UK.
Right.
And once the regulators in the respective countries have had a look at the data, it could take maybe 3 days, it could take a week, it could even take 2 weeks for the regulators to analyze that data carefully. And as I said, do risk-benefit analysis. Once they have done that, they will give, if it is found suitable, then the regulators will give the approval. So we should expect that by end of December, probably, if all these things fall in place, that is, all of things being favorable, we should see at least the Pfizer and Moderna in emergency approval mode and being sold in the market, if all of these are favorable.
And Oxford?
Oxford probably maybe a couple of weeks later is what my guess is. I mean, but it's my guess. It could be a very wild guess. I don't have any inside information from either AstraZeneca or Oxford.
All right. Appreciate you all very much for joining us on this this story that's being monitored and watched very closely. And I think more importantly, what we've sort of sought to do is understand these developments, put it in context for our viewers. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for your time. Well, let's shift our focus, bring you up to speed with India's COVID numbers. India has reported 44,059 new cases and 511 deaths in the last 24 hours. That's 2.5% lower than yesterday. Over 91 lakh people so far have been infected with COVID-19, out of which 1,33,000 people have actually lost their lives to COVID-19. The total number of tests, interestingly, that have been conducted in the last 24 hours is once again below the 1 million mark at 8,49,596. The positivity rate in India currently stands at 5.1%.